So this week, my heart is to wrap up this little mini series on positioning ourselves for the presence of God. You know, we've looked at the reality over the last few weeks that God is a God who is ever present. He's omnipresent. He is. Yet at times we struggle to experience the presence of God. And my thought is that maybe it's me that's causing me to miss his presence. We've looked at the reality of changing the position in which we're in so we can experience him. The key that I found, it's in Deuteronomy chapter 6. It says, "These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you're crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you. And so that you may enjoy long life, hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey. Just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." We've looked at two of these three positions, two of these three ideas that we can do to reposition ourselves to experience his presence. This started at the end, loving the Lord with all your strength. We had the picture of Zacchaeus, the short man who wanted to see Jesus, but the crowd was too great and he was too short. So he loved God with his strength. He ran ahead of them. He climbed a tree in order to experience the presence of God. Physically, sometimes there's things that I must do to love God with all my strength. Last week, we looked at love the Lord your God with all your soul. You know, we looked at Romans where it said that we're called to be living sacrifice. We love the Lord our God with our soul when we sacrifice. That's self. That's the things that I want. Sometimes I want what God doesn't want. Sometimes my desires aren't his desires. And we got to do what Jesus instructed us to do. Deny ourselves. Take up our cross daily and follow him. Because what I see in Scripture is that often sacrifice, it precedes the presence of God. When I love God with my whole soul, when I start to deny myself and live as a living sacrifice, the presence of God follows. Today I want to look at the last one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. You know, what does it look like to love someone with all of our heart? I mean, there's lots of examples, there's lots of ideas, but I looked at a few things this week. You know, we love with all of our heart, and a lot of times there's love poems and love songs that we can sing or say. A poem by E.E. Cummins, "I carry your heart with me, I carry it in my heart. I'm never without it. Anywhere I go, you go. My dear, and whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are, my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you." But here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. You know, when we fall in love with the woman, we find ourselves saying these things that we never dreamed possible. We express love through words. Sometimes the words are as simple as "I love you." Sometimes they're as crazy as the bud of the bud and the sky of the sky. "I hold you in my heart." I mean, we do these things. Lionel Richie, Diana Ross, they sing a song, "Endless Love." It's one of the top love songs on the Billboard platform. My love, there's only you in my life. The only thing that's right, the first love, you're the breath that I take, you're every step I make. I want to share my love with you. No one else will do. Your eyes, they tell me how much you care. Oh yes, You will always be my endless love. You see, we express love through words, and we express love through song. You know, if I want to position my heart for worship, how do we express the love of God that we have with our words and with our song? It's this idea that we call worship. When we worship God, we're positioning ourselves for His presence because we're aligning our heart. We're putting our heart in the position in which it's expressing love to Him. What happened last week? When the temple was rebuilt, the trumpeters, the musicians joined in unison to give praise and thanks to the Lord. Accompanied by trumpets, cymbals, and other instruments, the singers raised their voices in praise to the Lord and sang, "He is good. His love endures forever, forever." The temple of the Lord was filled with the cloud, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the temple of God. You see, there was sacrifice, but there was also worship. Worship positions us for the presence of God. It helps me to express my love for God from my heart. But remember, we're called to worship Him in spirit and in truth. And at times, we aren't genuinely worshiping. We're just singing songs because we're not paying attention to the songs that we're singing. True worship is a reflection of love. True worship is the outflow of love for God. My words and my songs sing what's inside of me. There's an example. Who do we think of in Scripture? They were known. It says David was known as being a man after God's heart. He was known for his worship. He was a worshiper. 2 Samuel, there's an example of this. The Ark of the Covenant has been away from the tabernacle for a while, and David has become king. And the Philistines had captured it, but they gave it back, and it had sat somewhere for a while. They tried carrying it, it falls. All these things have happened, but David is in charge of bringing this Ark back to the temple of God. In the midst of that, 2 Samuel 6, David and all Israel were celebrating with all their might before the Lord. Think of that. We love the Lord our God with all our heart and with all of our strength, with all their might before the Lord, with castanets, harps, lyres, timbrels, sistrums, and cymbals. And there's this weird moment that happens in the midst of this. David's the king. He's royal. But wearing a linen ephod, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might. David is expressing his worship for God by laying down the cloaks that had adorned him. He's stripping himself of his royalty. He's stripping himself, that sacrifice of his identity, and he's bearing his heart before the Lord. It's not the position of a king to be in front of the people in a linen ephod. That's commoner's clothes. And his wife, she sees this and she questions it and she says, "What in the world is David doing?" But see, David's a worshiper who worships his God with all his heart. When she addressed it to him, David responds. David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me, rather than your father or anyone from his house, when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I'll become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in high honor." You see, when we worship God, it's God-centered worship. It's not about me. It's not about what I'm wearing. It's not about what I'm doing. It's not about who's looking at me. It's not about how good my words sound. It's about me. It's not about pleasing someone else. It's not about making someone else happy. It's about this relationship with me and God. David is modeling. It doesn't matter if Michal is looking at him or the slave girls. He has to worship unashamed before God. Not only is he unashamed in his worship, but his worship isn't based on just the circumstance. Yes, this is a profound moment, but in another psalm, we see David worshiping. In Psalm 119, 1 through 6, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the works of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all the earth. The words come to the end of the world. In the heaven, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It's like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens, makes its circuit to the other. Nothing is deprived of its warmth. I mean, what inspires David's worship is the sun. How often do we see a sun? It's common. It happens every day. It comes up and it goes down. David's worship wasn't circumstantial. His worship was consistent. His worship was persistent. And his worship was expectant. David worshiped God regularly. He not only worshiped him regularly, but he worshiped him persistently, expecting the promises, expecting the love, expecting the presence of God. Not only did he worship him consistently and persistently, but expectantly, believing that God would come. We love him with all of our heart. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. That's worship. Take a moment today, this week, this month, to be intentional, to be consistent, to be persistent and expectant with your worship. Sing a song to God, a love song, expressing your heart to him, expecting that he will show up. The Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. May he turn his face towards you, grant you his peace. And may you experience the presence of God as you reposition in worship. Be blessed.